What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is a beautiful morning in Southwest Florida here. It's like just perfect. Temperature's perfect. It's like in the 60s. Not too hot in the days. Freaking gorgeous. So California has a minimum wage law today that goes into effect. And my daughter and I were listening to it on the way to school. And it was very funny. Because I want her as a 9-year-old to understand what's going on. Number one, I want her to understand one thing, as far as these political things go. The government is not your friend. There is no entity in the history of the world that has killed more human beings than governments. None. Like, just none. And that's the accounted for deaths. That's not the deaths that are caused because of expensive or more expensive drug costs that wouldn't have been a thing if you didn't have the FDA or anything like that. You know, if you didn't have all these regulations on things and the free market was allowed to shake things out, there'll be a guy in the comments, well, bro, man, they do good, man. They regulate things that are bad. Not really, man. My belief is human beings are intelligent enough to make their own decisions. There's going to be some winners. There's going to be some losers. There's going to be some inefficiencies. There's going to be some tragic loss, but allow people to do what they do. Like, just let them be free, man. Like, let them do what they do. But we live in a absolute slave society, like where they force you into their currency system. They take up to 30% of that, 40% of that in taxes. If you don't pay that, men with guns will show up to your home. They will take you. You have the illusion of freedom, and I think George Carlin said it best, where he goes, you got two political parties, you got this tax, you know, all this stuff. He's like, but guess what? You got 37 bagel flavors because you have the illusion of choice. And that's exactly true. And so California, smaller government, still a government, state government, has decided to raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour. Chipotle and McDonald's have responded with raising their menu prices. So who actually pays the increase in cost to the poor worker? That would be the consumer. So there's a thing in price theory. Price theory is a class I had, which is basically like a intense microeconomics class. You've got macro, that's like what's going on in the big picture, and you got micro, that's what's going on at the individual business level. In price theory, it's like a super study into that. Basically, you raise your prices depending on how elastic they are. You're gonna sell less. You're gonna have like less demand, and so you're always trying to price efficiently, like where the ideal profit margin sits. So what McDonald's and Chipotle on this news story had said was, yep, they already increased their prices. In addition to that, they already laid off workers. So these poor workers that are not getting $20 an hour are now getting $20 an hour, except some of them have been fired. And then McDonald's cited that their intention is to automate away from needing labor whatsoever. So this is an issue because your bottom tier is actually finding less employment opportunities because of the California state government. And if you're in that area, you got to go. Like there's nothing else to do there. Like California is a beautiful place. It's an amazing land speculation moving forward over the next generation or two. But like in the meantime, like it's like, dudes, like I'm amazed that people pay a 16% California state income tax on top of federal. Like it's just like, I mean, but the point is that people that lose are the people at the bottom of the society that are working at those wages, that are working at those wages because they haven't acquired skills to do another task, or they're starting out. Like my first job was at McDonald's. I got $6 an hour. Like that's what it was. It was in 2004. I worked there for 18 months. I saved $8,500. I worked Saturdays and occasionally one school night a week, and sometimes a Sunday afternoon. But they would allow me to work up to 15 hours a week, and then I would mow lawns. And then when I was 15 and a half, I left McDonald's and I started buying up my lawn equipment and getting ready for when I got my license. And when I got my driver's license, I started a lawn business. And 18 months after starting a lawn business, I sold it for $50,000 in 2007. So I started at McDonald's and I saved, and then I turned it into a lawn outlet. Then I sold it. Then I took that. I had a nest egg, a $50,000 nest egg. I also had the truck. I had the other 7.3. the flatbed 7.3. So I had like a paid for 60,000 mile truck. I had some other stuff, but I had a net worth of like 70,000 bucks. Like 36 months later from starting at McDonald's, 18 at McDonald's, 18 in my own business. I started out at $60 an hour. I ended out at like whatever, you know, probably making $50 an hour or whatever, because I had 2 employees that were making 10 or 15 an hour. I don't quite recall. I feel like it was probably 10. This is back in the days when, you know, like, if you, I don't know, fuel was under $2. So, you know, the guys were getting paid 5-6 gallons an hour to work for us. It's kind of how I've always computed things in my head. If you were to do that today, $4, well, I use diesel fuel a lot, but like, let's say gasoline in our area is like $3.50 right now. You know, six gallons, you've actually gotten poorer on a minimum wage of 20. So I imagine California, it's at least $4 a gallon. So they've actually gotten, like, that lower tier has actually gotten poorer since, you know, we've come with these policies. But this is the thing. This is government. Like, this is problem, reaction, solution. You know, problem, like, let's like the border crisis thing. You know, everything's a crisis, but let's let in lots of people to uphold one political party. Okay, and this is going to be a big drain on the system. Well, the solution to that is we're probably going to need some digital IDs, and wouldn't Mr. Trump be a great guy to bring in your federal police everywhere? You know, oh yeah, we're going to put in federal police everywhere, border agents, and do a federal ID, a digital ID. And you know, the right will be like, they'll praise it. They'll be like, oh, this is great, and then there'll be some dude, maybe like me, like a dude who looks at guys like Stalin and goes, yo, Stalin did some real bad things, but that's the playbook to follow. If you don't want to be if you don't want to become a third world nation, actually Stalinism is not a terrible thing to go with. There's a book called The Dictator's Handbook. It's a really good read, and it's really shocking. If you're willing to do Stalin-like things, you can have Stalin-like accomplishments. Not like saying that that's absolutely going to happen, but we're setting up for that. All right, so we're setting up for, like, hey, we've got this strong presence, this strong federal presence everywhere. We've got this, like, we got people more enslaved. Oh, we know what you're buying and what you're eating and what you're drinking, and, like, we know all those things. And then once we move it to, like, a purely digital currency, we got you. Like, you're trapped. And what I'm working on is actually is creating a parallel system, because in Russia, in the Russian example, in 1917, they went after this group called the kulaks. Kulaks are people like me. Kulak is defined as anyone who had 3 acres or more, was a small business owner. That was a kulak. And it might have been 8 acres. But, like, either way, details on Wikipedia are there. And he basically wiped out the kulaks one by one, more or less. He sent his SS guard, or his guard, and you know, kind of just, and he used it as a story of like, oh man, look at these greedy capitalists, man. You guys are just having a hard time because of these greedy capitalists. Let's get rid of the kulaks. So the second they got rid of the kulaks, you know, the guy that sold you milk next door, the guy that was getting you butter, the guy that was giving you beef. Oh, you needed Stalin, and you needed like, you know, the SSR, like you needed like the great Soviet, you know, Mother Russia to like help, you know, provide you your government shoes and your government car, and everyone was equal in the fact that they're equally poor. Communism is great for those at the top. It screws everybody else at the bottom, and it's a very violent system of government. If you've ever read Communist Manifesto, it's like 70 pages or less. It's worth a read. You can do it in a day. And Karl Marx, probably the most dangerous idea that's ever really been written about, because it's been enacted. That's really the issue. Mr. Marx had this great idea where he's like, you need capitalism, it needs to flourish, and you need to have these factories. But at which point, these factories and these entrepreneurs have created these things. We go in and we automate the factories, and we take them over by force, and we kill the capitalists. And after that point, we then return back to the true human experience, which is where we're like making art and music and fishing and hunting and like getting back to like, you know, those things, which we still can do now. It's just like, it's a choice. You have to choose, you know, to set your life up in a way in which you can enjoy those things all the time. And he sold it to the plebs, and they loved it. And so communism is kind of a 19th century idea, 20th century idea. Now we're going more to like neo-feudalism, where it's like, it appears good, you appear free, but the doors and walls are slowly trapping in. And I'm actually optimistic about where we're going from here, because when I have conversations with millennials or, you know, guys in my generation, I'm like, yo, so let's say they draft you, what's your moves? And like a lot of people, I don't know if they'll follow through this, but a lot of people are like, oh dude, we're gonna squat up, and like if they want to fight, we're gonna fight them right here. I hear that a lot. So I'm like, all right, because they're definitely moving in that direction. My suspicion is they'll do like this big, like, you know, this big you know, black flag event, or what, you know, they'll have some sort of flagged event where it'll be like, oh my goodness, look at this terrible tragedy that we caused and we did. And you guys know, like, they're obviously doing that. Like, they're obviously behind this. Like, you can tell, like, a Fed, like, you know, he looks like a frat bro. Like, everyone knows what a Fed looks like. But anyway, like, that's kind of where we're going, and the common guy is going to beg for this, you know. Problem, reaction, solution. Problem: we have an immigration overabundance where we're bringing in unskilled labor and people who don't necessarily like us. Pretty bad moves, and then we're paying them off the fats of the system to not produce. That's rough because our tax revenue is falling, and like we're increasing our spending. That's not a great situation. And then what will happen is, like, problem, reaction, and then solution. Well, solution's clearly, guys, we gotta get digital IDs and FedCoin. Like, that's clearly, we gotta have some CBDCs, you know. Positive to that is, well, there's gonna be entrepreneurs like me that are gonna grossly oppose this. And at some point, like, it might just be like tides against you. You just gotta go somewhere. I'm going to Colombia next month, checking out Colombia. My buddy just built a place down there. He's got an avocado farm going on. He's like, dude, South America's what's up. And I'm like, you know, like, micro global elitism, like, actually sounds kind of like the right move right now. Like, it, you know, like, we see the global elites doing this. You know, they're diversified all over the globe. They've got their jets, they're ready to ride, and, you know, all that type of stuff. Secondary passports, they've got different entities other places. But the issue that we're having here is that we're kind of getting to, like, more of a global governance, kind of like the COVID passes, where, you know, like, everyone, oh man, you need your ID to cross these borders. Well, up until the 1930s, you didn't even need a passport. They didn't even exist. You just go somewhere in the world, no big deal, you know? And so they've got this illusion of freedom. And unless we talk about it, we promote it, and we live like that, we're at a spot where we're losing freedoms. We're not gaining them. It could snap. It could snap in the other way. The French Revolution did. They kept going. They kept going. They kept going. If you went to court in the old French Empire there, it would take months and years. You'd have to go to a place to tell you what room your court hearing was in. It got, like, crazy. Like how much government fluff there was. And you guys have all seen that line from Antoinette where she's like, oh, the peasants are hungry? Well, let them eat cake. And it was like, yeah, they were so disillusioned with the current situation on the ground that eventually heads started to roll. Now, here's the thing. That's a peasant revolt. Peasants' revolts don't work. They don't go well. Some people will say, oh, the American Revolution was a peasant revolt. It wasn't. It was a bunch of really wealthy landowners that had land speculations over west of the Mississippi, and they wanted to develop west of the Mississippi. The current crown said no. They wanted to leave that actually to the Native Americans. You could call them like the super lefties at the time. But they were like, no, we're going to have Canada. We're going to control Canada, and then we're going to control the colonies, and you guys aren't going west of the Mississippi, because the empire at that time, the British Empire, was getting a little too expansive, and they couldn't really control it, and so they didn't want to open up a new frontier. Well, men need a new frontier, because if they don't have a new frontier, they get restless, and they'll create a new frontier, and like, typically through revolutions, and that's sort of what happened. But you have a lot of those guys that signed the Declaration of Independence. They were massive landowners. I'm talking 20 million acres, 30 million acres on plotted charts across the west side of the Mississippi. Once they got rid of the crown, boom, we're good to go. And they were also a little upset with like 6% tax on tea. Like, you know, like, oh my God, you guys are going to tax us 6% on tea. But like, look at the American cuck today. Like, dude, I'm going to tax you. You make $100 grand, I'm going to tax you 34% on your income. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. I mean, we could be free tonight. Like, we could all move to Monero. You guys could run the Monero blockchain on your iPhones and your laptops at home. And we could literally just be like, yep, we're using Monero now. And like, be free tonight. No taxes, no tracement, no nothing. So what's cool is it's there, it exists. Other assets are pumping, like Bitcoin. I'm a fan, but like fully tracked, fully traced, can't mine it really on your own. So you need a fiat bridge, and they've created that fiat bridge. Just notice this. They've created that ETF pathway. So now all this flow is going to the ETF, and all the Bitcoiners are like, bro, this is awesome. BlackRock is buying all the Bitcoin. And it's like, okay, all right. I mean, I've got Bitcoin too, bro. It's pumping, like, cool, in dollar terms. But like, what I want is a currency they can't tax. I want a currency they don't know anything about. I want a currency where like government is a voluntary exchange. Hey, I'd like to buy a license plate to use these roads per year. I'd like to buy a whatever. But like ultimately, like, can you just like involuntarily steal from me? No. That's the world I want to move into. It's the world I'm going to build for myself. I have to do it through different assets. That's why I'm a huge gold and silver bug. Like, I stack that stuff all the time. I actually transact with it on a monthly basis. I built a network here where we transact in silver. We've been doing it for a couple years now. It works great. You'd actually be amazed how well it ratios. Another video on the other channel that I'll talk about on, where I've got like a finance channel. Then you come up with a better name for it. Right now it's Light Capital. I might change it up, might just rock with it. We'll see. But like this minimum wage thing is just it's just a problem reaction solution. The solution is more unemployment, more people that are dependent, more people that are on like more people that are on unemployment benefits that are like, you know, hanging off the teat of the government. And like this is not a good thing. But if people don't understand this, and economics is one of those things where it's not really well understood by politicians and it's not really well understood by common guys, but it is a very understandable thing. It's a very intuitive thing. But we've got to talk about it. We've got to do those things. We've got to live like that. And I'm actually going to be putting some logos on our trucks to promote alternative currencies. The government hates this. They're going to crack down on this big. There's going to be a moment where they're, you know, if I get big enough at this, I get more successful with doing this. If you know, I get my industry to start doing this, yeah, at some point there's going to be a knock at my gate, or like a van at my gate, or whatever. Or my buddy who works for the deep state is like, bro, you'll just be out for some groceries and we'll just black bag you, throw you in a van dog. Like, they'll never hear from you. Like but he tells you this stuff. He's like, dude, no, if you think that you live in a country of law, nah, like that's not a thing at all. But like the average dude doesn't really know that. They kind of believe in like this justice and all this crap, and it's like, no, dude, you guys have like a vampire, like elite class, and like you need to really start doing something about it, because if you don't, you're gonna end up just like the kulaks. Like you're gonna end up just like the Soviets went 70 years in a crap system before it collapsed, and then it was a pretty hard 20 years after that. And now I would say it's like, from what I hear from guys that have moved to Moscow, and I've actually floated this idea myself, freaking great. It's cold though. It's way too cold for me, but it's like, man, there's like, they're energy independent, they're food independent. Like, they've got massive gold reserves. They're already kicked out of the SWIFT system, so they're already off the US dollar. Not a lot of nations are. They're in a good position. They've got a good relationship with China, which is the manufacturing hub of the world. Not a lot of reasons to not love the Russians right now. I mean, I've been saying that for a long time. A lot of people be like, the Ukraine, man. It's like, no, dude. Like, this is a war to enrich US elites. You've got to see that at the expense of an entire generation of Ukrainians, when it was completely unnecessary. Like, the US and the US elite should be on war crimes for what they've done. And instead, they'll probably just fight like a big old war and get a bunch of people, you know, all amped up. And, you know, that's just kind of typically how these things go. And, which is unfortunate, but you get the common dude, and that, you know, the common dude just does what he's told. And that's a sad thing. But I'm optimistic that maybe with the fact that we have communication and things like that we have now, and we can share this stuff, and we can't share this stuff indefinitely. Like, at some point they can just be like, Trav, you don't have a channel anymore, or, you know, or this type of content with these type of keywords. Like I said, the C word earlier, you know, like those type of things. Like, you can't say, like, you know, you gotta call it the cerveza sickness or whatever, you know, like, but these type of things that are completely fake and gay, you know, they can block you. The good thing is that there is actually an internet. Like, there's a new internet, like, that I'm using with my buddies currently. It's real kind of like slowish, but it's like completely different. That'll be another thing. What's interesting about it is these are my buddies that were buying Bitcoin at $3, and were like talking to me about Bitcoin in 2011. And like, these are the guys that are like, dude, check out this new internet. And like, they're buying, you basically buy space on it. And there's lots of space to be had on it, but that's kind of our newest speculation right now, which is like, yeah, I got a feeling that free speech is definitely going away. I know you got the free speech platform of Elon Musk, but you know, he picks and chooses who he wants on there too, because that's what the elite do. And typically when you get to this spot, we'll wrap with this, you have a counter elite movement. So in the US Revolution, which is the first civil war of the United States, because they actually were fighting for control of the government. The second civil war that you're taught about in government indoctrination camps, that is actually a war of failed secession. nobody in the South wanted to run DC. They should have. They should have just went to DC and burned the place down. But like they just wanted to be left alone, and they actually failed at that because Big Daddy government and Mr. Lincoln came down there and like freaking shoved it down their throats. A lot of people think Lincoln's like the best president. He's probably the worst president we've ever had for a lot of reasons, mainly because he didn't follow the Constitution not a damn bit. And it's kind of sad that it took so long for them to get him. You know, if they had got him at the beginning of the war, that might have had a happier result. Like 500,000 Americans dying is not a great result because of Mr. Lincoln. But his thing was he wanted to build an empire. So you could argue later in the 20th century that it worked out well. But what happens is you get these counter-elite movements. And so the failed secession was a counter-elite movement in the South that failed. The Revolutionary War, or the first Civil War of the United States, was a counter-elite movement that succeeded. They needed to get the plebs involved, but like it succeeded, and their land speculations worked out, and Thomas Jefferson and his boys like became the new elite. Because before that there was the crown and there was a whole governance over top of those guys, and so all of a sudden it was like they became the big guys. So you know, it is what it is, but we're in a time now where you see the counter elite guys like Elon Musk, single generation, second generation wealth, guys like Trump, third, fourth generation wealth, but they're really trying to become like dynasty, like the new elite, as opposed to if you look at the old elite, you know, like those that have been you know, like the Soroses, or the people that own these media outlets. You know, they're basically battling for this power. I'm optimistic that actually we might see the first time in human history where the common guy has these tools that he can exit with. The downside to that is they've got some serious tools themselves, like interesting what they did to Maui. You know, if they don't like you, or Texas, they don't like you, you know, it's possible that laser beams from the sky might be coming down on you. So you've got these kind of issues. The good thing is the U.S. fiscal situation is basically over. Like they're literally taking in less in taxes than they're spending in interest. And this is like, you know, we're only a little bit out from that happening. We're not there yet, but they're about to be taking in less in taxes than they pay in interest. And they're gonna have to cut the Fed government by like 50% or change the rules. My thing is that I think there'll be a massive like blackout thing where like I'm not saying the power grid will go down, but it'd be really super convenient. But ultimately, the financial system will lock up as it did in the 1930s. They locked the banks for 5 years, and at which point in time, they'll just change the rules and be like, hey, your stuff's re-liquid again, but you need the new currency, you need the new situation, you need the new whatever. And the banks will love it because they're already with the Fed anyway, but they'll merge in. And so what will happen is you'll have this financial system that's controlled by like the current U.S. elites, and then you'll have like this new thing where like the counter elite are like, hey, you know, we could use Bitcoin, or we could use whatever. And so what will happen is they'll inevitably fight. That's kind of what's going to happen, is they'll inevitably get to the spot where they fight. So more on this later. Let me know in the comments what parts of these you like. We'll make more videos. I'd like to get to 2 or 3 videos a day. We're doing like 1 right now, not consistently either, so I'd like to get there, but I need to know subject matter and what you guys love, what you engage with. Please like these videos, particularly you guys that watch to the end. Please like these videos. Please comment on these videos, because that's the only way that this really works, is that the algorithm sends it out. And then at some point in time, we're gonna have to actually move platforms anyway. We're gonna have to move to the new internet, and that's kind of cool, because kind of like almost being micro counter elites, there's a benefit there. There's a wealth transfer. Like my buddies that were just stacking and mining Bitcoin at $3 a share, or $3 a Bitcoin, you know, they're doing well now. They're doing freaking well. So, you know, and there's a lot of them actually. There's a lot of undercover, potentially billionaires. I might have a few buddies that are undercover billionaires. So like at the right time, it's interesting, because you've got some dudes that think like I do, and that might just be like, yo, let's just move like 250 mil to this direction right now. Not a lot you can do with that, by the way. It's not enough. But there are things that, like, technology is getting very more decentralized. You see this with the Houthis, and like how they got the U.S. Navy in check. Like you could have a $26 billion boat, and like you got 10 guys in a cave, and they got you checkmate. I love it. I love it. But anyway, guys, see you on the next one.